The Razer Blade 15 from 2020 released back in July, and it's a fantastic laptop. It surprises me in every single aspect of performance that I look for in a main computer. It edits video like lightning, plays all the game that I actually play, cough cough, WoW Classic, cough cough, and you can limit the RGB-ness to a manageable professional level. With all of that out of the way, how have I enjoyed using it all this time later? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. I've been using this Razer Blade 15 base almost every single day since I purchased it about a month ago. And this computer is absolutely the straw that broke the camel's back and had me move my video editing solution to a Windows workflow. Before we get into that spicy take, however, let's quickly cover the base specs of my Razer Blade, and then we'll go into things that I both like and that I dislike after all of this use. First, I have the base model base. That's a confusing way to say it, but that's the naming convention. My laptop has a 6-core Intel i7-10750H. For graphics, it's got the NVIDIA RTX 2060. It came standard with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 solid-state drive, and I've got the model with the full HD 144Hz display. Now, for this specific laptop that you're looking at right here, that's not the whole spec story about what's really under the hood, but that will hold us over for now until we get to that section of the video. Ooh, suspense. Let's start my ramblings off with the things that I don't like after one solid month of use. The thing that I like least about the Razer, and if all of their laptops share this same material, it's a Razer thing and not a Blade 15 thing. This finish, well, you can't see it now because I fixed this. This finish looks so good in a vacuum, but this comes with the most smudge attracting material that I think I've ever seen in a piece of technology. I was really nervous that the Magic Keyboard that I use with my iPad would be pretty smudgeable. I make up a lot of words. Nothing picks up skin-based oils like the Razer Blade on every single surface of the laptop. The top, the bottom, and the keyboard base. It'll look smudged up the instant you get it out of the box. Now, they do provide a microfiber cloth with the computer, so hooray, but I'd rather not spend all of my time every day cleaning my laptop. The quick solution for this and to do what I did is you can cover the blade. Now, I personally bought a D brand skin, but you could get something else. And I would highly recommend covering this if you aren't gonna just leave this in one static spot and never touch it because, ugh. I don't know. It looks good, but it gets smudged so fast. The next thing that I don't like so much about the 15 is the keyboard. And is that unfair? Probably, but I'm a pretty big stickler when it comes to keyboards. It's what I spend most of my days doing, so I do set a pretty high bar. And the keyboard here, I mean, it's totally usable. It's got a crisp enough click and enough travel that it doesn't get in the way, but can you hear that? I don't know, something about the design or the shape of the keys or just the way that it's all laid out prevents me from really being able to get into a typing rhythm when I'm trying to type on just the laptop. Plus the trackpad itself, like right here, plus this guy, I have some serious palm rejection problems where the mouse will move because the trackpad sensed my palm. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it gets real old real quickly, and I don't have those kind of issues on my XPS or my MacBooks. Also, and this doesn't bother me as much, but I know some really like to have the inverted T for the arrow keys. Here it's all oval shaped smushed together. Now, you've heard me say this before, I rarely use my arrow keys, but you've got to have the arrow keys you want, right? You gotta have it the way you want. And if I'm really stretching, like if I'm really pushing for something that I don't like, I still don't necessarily like the big old green logo on top of the laptop. I don't see it much anymore buried under the skin, but if I were going to recommend a laptop to another creative hybrid person, someone that's like me that has a professional job during the day, but is kind of like a secret YouTuber at night, things like this make me hesitate to recommend it because while some of you have commented that you'd rock this in a meeting, my industry would not look kindly on a neon green glowing thing on my laptop during a meeting. Yes, my industry is pretty boring. But for the negatives, that's it. And I hate talking about things that I don't like. I much prefer to make these videos and talk about things that I do like. So let's get into those things that I do like because obviously there are a lot of them or we wouldn't have made this follow-up video. First off, and let me just applaud Razer right now. Now I spend most of my time on this channel on Apple products or what I would call Apple-like products. And they are great and I love them, or I wouldn't make so many videos about them. But something that's really getting old in the Apple-like space is the lack of I/O, the lack of port options on all of the laptops. I'm as big a fan of Thunderbolt 3 as the next person. I like how versatile it is, and I like how you can use it to set up an office with one cable. But I don't always want to need an adapter or a dongle or a dock, or whatever else I need to connect my darn USB-A mouse, my USB-A keyboard, or an SD card reader. And I don't necessarily want to pay extra to get functionality that should be considered standard computer fare after I just spent so much money on a computer. All that to say, Razer, good job on keeping a substantial amount of ports on this laptop. On the one side, you get a full gigabit Ethernet port, USB-A, USB-C, and a headphone jack. That right there, this side of the laptop beats out most other computers that I've checked out. But wait, there's more. On the other side of the laptop, you get 2 more USB-A, a USB-C with Thunderbolt 3, and a full HDMI port. Now, if you're new to the channel in like, let's say the last 6 months or so, I'm a sucker for full HDMI ports on all of my gear. Every single piece of gear that I use to make these videos for you, I want them to have HDMI ports. Even the microphone. The microphone should have a full HDMI port. Sure, the Blade base is missing an SD card slot, which I sorely wish it had. But if you need that SD card slot and you don't need the Ethernet port, you can get the advanced model, which swaps out those two. Plus, the advanced model can be charged from its USB-C port, which is kind of handy. The next thing I'm a really big fan of is the display. Now, coming from the XPS 15, I really thought computer displays would have kind of been tough. Like, I figured I was ruined on computer displays for the future. And while yes, I do kind of miss that extra bit of real estate here on the bottom of the screen, I actually really like the 1080p panel that they've put on this laptop. It's sharp enough, color accurate enough, which if you are like me and you calibrate your monitors with a professional video calibration tool, it's very accurate anyway, but it's fine standard out of the box, and this is bright enough in all situations except probably outdoor direct sunlight. But who goes outside anymore? The real selling point of this monitor, at least for me, is the fast refresh rate. If you haven't used a fast refresh rate monitor before, it's really, really awesome. And not just for high-speed gaming. Everything you do seems so much smoother and more accurate when it's refreshing this fast. And when I go back to my normal computer rig with its 60 Hz display, it just seems choppier and slower. And sure, anyone can get used to anything, but if I personally had to make the choice between higher resolution but slower refresh rate and a lower resolution, fast refresh rate, after using this Razer, I'd probably take the higher refresh option. And if you've only seen high refresh rate on like the iPad Pro or a cell phone, it's not the same thing as seeing it on an actual computer. Wow, that's about the most PC Master Race thing I've ever said. Who even am I anymore? Another thing that I really like is the price. When I wanted to get a 6-core i7, RTX 2060, and upgradability, I figured I'd be spending some serious money. If you want those kind of specs from an XPS, you are looking at the XPS 17 in its $2,400 configuration. And if I was gonna save some dollars, the laptop would then have been a huge honking gaming laptop. And I didn't want that either. I wanted something that was a hybrid between power, but also portability. So imagine my surprise that I was able to pick this up on Amazon for $1,600. Yes, that's still expensive as far as, you know, life goes, but for a creative tool with these specs and functionality, this is priced very well. I'm very, very impressed with the price, performance, and size of this laptop. A few moments ago, we talked about upgradability, and another thing that I'm just a gigantic fan of in the Windows laptop space is the ability to upgrade certain components on your own. It's funny because when I say things like this, Windows users in the comments are like, yeah, Apple fanboy, how can you be excited by that? That's just the way it is. But I am, because it's not very often that I get to be excited about these kind of things. The Razer Blade 15 has user upgradable RAM and an M.2 NVMe spots. Now, I've personally upgraded this to 64 gigabytes of RAM, and I've added another 1 terabyte solid state drive into mine, giving me some serious portable power and storage. Right now, as I'm talking about it, I'm debating on whether swapping that 1 terabyte out for a ridiculous like 4 or 8 terabyte drives and never needing an external drive again. Who even needs them? Get out of here. The Blade is also the easiest laptop to upgrade I've seen. Of the 3 that I've upgraded so far, this is the best. The bottom of this thing comes off so much easier than either of the XPS computers, and unlike the XPS 15, it comes with the mounting screw pre-installed if you are going to add that extra M.2 drive. You don't have to buy more hardware to make that happen. And I love being able to do this myself instead of paying a premium for a company to do it for me. And last but certainly not least, in the things I enjoy, the power. Let me say that again, the power. This laptop is insanely powerful. I cannot believe how much power is packed into this thing. Sure, it doesn't have the RTX 2070 or the higher end i7 or even the i9, but this does real well with what it has. And some of that has to do with the thermal performance. If you are new to laptops, thermal performance is the single most important thing that designers have to get right. We could take a small box like this, put in any CPU and GPU combination, but if you don't get the heat away from those components, the computer will throttle their performance or it'll melt on you. So if you're gonna do that and lose all the performance or have like a slag of metal and plastic, you might as well have gone with an i3. The Razer Blade has never once given me a thermal throttling indication. I've edited and rendered several projects on this thing in DaVinci Resolve, projects with 6K raw video, 4K raw video, 10-bit, all sorts of tough codecs, and I've rendered it out into a highly compressed H.264 file that is pretty rough on computers, and this thing handles it all like a champ. Yes, in response to the question I hear you asking right now, the way that it gets around the thermal problem is it limits the power that goes to the processor under load, but I haven't noticed a significant performance loss due to this power limitation, and I have definitely not seen a performance loss due to thermal constraints. And that's impressive because it's a pretty serious tightrope for engineers to walk, but they seem to have walked it really well here. You do have the option in Razer's included software to increase the power to the CPU or the GPU. If you want a little boost to either system, I generally keep it in the CPU boosted mode. But the real star of the show, at least for me as a frequent video editor, is the GPU. The RTX 2060 is one of the new NVIDIA cards that does have the ability to use NVIDIA's latest NVENC encoders, which if you haven't used them, I'm having a difficult time thinking of a word other than magic to describe them. This new NVIDIA NVENC is probably my favorite technology innovation of recent memory, and they are directly the reason why I've moved to Windows for video editing. Long, rambling technical explanation aside, with this graphics card, this laptop edits and renders video faster than the iMac Pro, iMac 2020, MacBook Pro 16, XPS 15, XPS 17 with the 1650. It does things like it will render a 15-minute video in 7 minutes. It's insane. It's insane. I want this functionality on every computer ever. If I'm buying a computer for personal use, it's gotta have a Turing NVIDIA graphics card. They're so good, so good. But at the end of the day, so what, right? Would I recommend the Razer Blade 15 base model? Yes. Yes, I think this is probably my favorite Windows laptop of all time. Of all time. It doesn't have the best specs, it doesn't have the best portability, it doesn't have the sleek tiny body or the crazy small bezels or mind-blowing display, but as an all-rounder, it's fantastic. Now there is one thing that would keep me from recommending this, is I've only owned this for a month. I've heard lots of reports and I've seen lots of your comments talking about Razer Longevity and customer support as a general negative thing. And with as much as I've seen on the internet and in my comment section, there's probably a valid concern out there. So if you are going to get one of these, be careful. And if I do have any problems with mine going forward, as I'm gonna be using this an awful lot, I will update you and keep you in the loop. And if you said to yourself, Gary, okay, I wanna see that power firsthand. Well, I've got a video just for you and you can click right here to see the true power of the Razer Blade for video editing. Click right here. Click, 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 click. Click on the Razer. Thanks for watching.